I'm Alex.
I'm James.
And I'm Dan.
And welcome to episode 27 of the RAGAMUFFIN Music Podcast. Every month we get together, talk about the latest news, music and trends in the world of alternative music.
On this episode, we're reviewing singles from Avenged Sevenfold, Veil of Maya, Trophy Eyes and more.
And we'll be putting together the lineups of our dream bands.
But first, some news.
What's been happening?
Kicking things off, Spiritbox dropped off Falling in Reverse's Popular Monster Tour. Essentially, they were announced for 6 shows of the tour, and everyone on Twitter went, please don't do that. And Spiritbox pulled out, and sort of it caused a bit of discourse online about whether or not bands choose what tours they take. A lot of people who aren't in bands weighing in, saying, oh no, record labels force bands to take tours and stuff, which then prompted a load of artists to come out and say, actually, we do decide what tours we take. And I think it was a lot of people sort of trying to, like Spiritbox fans didn't want to believe that Spiritbox would take the tour, and so it sort of led to this whole big kerfuffle online about who artists should and shouldn't be touring with. For the record, don't tour with Falling in Reverse. But
damn it, I was going to tour with Falling in Reverse.
Yeah, just a bit of scene drama. It's really not. People sort of made a lot out of nothing, I think.
You could kind of see it coming as well because the announcement happened. A few days later, they quietly removed the announcement, like Spiritbox did, off all their socials, and people were suggesting it. And it wasn't until I think it was like one line statement kind of came out via social media, and people were like, you probably should address this just a little bit more. It just doesn't feel like they made enough of a comment, perhaps, than they could have done.
Don't worry, though. They've been replaced with the covers band.
Christ.
I can't stand that band. It's Our Last Night, for those that don't know, but don't like them.
Our Last Night and Ice Nine Kills on one tour.
You'd love that
Sounds
lineup.
like my fucking nightmare. In other news, the Heavy Music Awards nominations were announced. If you want to see a full breakdown and predictions video, that'll be coming to the channel soon. But what I want to ask you two boys is, it's Wembley Arena. They normally have live performances. I want to hear your predictions about who could be performing this year. It's got to be big.
So,
because they got to draw people to Wembley Arena.
To break the fourth wall a little bit, we've just come off the back of seeing Beartooth as of time of recording, and they've just played there, and we had Beartooth headlining last year. So you've got to feel like...
At the Forum.
Yeah, I can stand Forum, that is. So obviously this being a step up, now at Wembley Arena where we've just been, they've played there. So you've got to think kind of that level and above, really, in order to headline this. And I feel like I've kind of got 2 in mind, one more likely than the other. I think my first one is Architects. I don't think they've performed Heavy Music Awards as of yet. We've seen them play there before when it was SSE Arena, so that'll be a perfect fit. My other one, which I'm kind of less expecting, is Bring Me the Horizon. They've won awards in multiple years now where Ollie hasn't been there, and they've been busy, they've been in studio.
That's what I was going to say. They've not bothered turning up to collect the awards.
Exactly.
So
surely
they
not.
wouldn't perform.
But what if it's kind of been building towards this? If behind the scenes Heavy Music Awards have been like, look, we're trying to step this up. They've now got a ticketed event now, so it isn't just free thing, like free tickets as it was. Do you kind of enter a draw for it and just get given them? So there's a bit of more money behind it, which could also suggest, as well as the arena and step up, there could be a higher production level. Obviously, we've seen Bring Me Play a couple of years ago on the Post-Human tour, big production level, download happening, all this kind of buzz leading up to it. Could it be? Less likely, but they're the kind of 2 on my list.
Another thing with Bring Me is they are headlining Download. So if it was to be them, it'd probably have to be a surprise headline thing. Otherwise, that would likely breach a contract with Download.
Who do you suggest?
I think it's... Go on.
Architects would my go-to, I think.
Put it this way. Architects, their last 3 albums have won Album of the Year. And they're nominated again for Album of the Year this year. I just think they're the right fit. The only other option that in my mind could maybe work is like Biffy. But they seem to be, like, you know, the way that album cycles tend to work, they seem to be on a bit of a cooling off period now, coming off of the headline tour and Download. And
with Empire State Bastard looking like they're ramping things up this year.
So they might maybe not be doing anything, so they might not do it. But then also, if they're not doing anything, then a
one-off thing.
It could be pretty cool. It sort of has to be a band that, like, I think could justifiably probably headline the venue on its own.
Although thinking about this
Yeah.
as well, maybe they're not expecting a complete sellout of this. And again, it's a smaller scale event. And you think of where we've just been in there. It's going to take a lot to fill this up, I think, in terms of the capacity you've got in there. I know the tickets are cheaper than kind of a usual gig ticket, but it's a big venue. And are you going to be able to draw enough people to that? And it's a difficult one to think of. To be honest, I'm struggling to see them filling it out and it being like a max sellout. I'm kind of not expecting that. It would be lovely to see, because I think it's a great thing for a metal award show to have that.
Yeah, tough one to think about, but
Either way, I'm sure it's going to be a great event, and we're very much looking forward to it.
yeah. And the last bit of news, The Cure's Robert Smith essentially got people who bought tickets to their show a partial refund. The Cure wanted to keep ticket prices low because he is, quote, sickened by the surging prices in tickets lately. And The Cure insisted that their ticket prices remained affordable for everyone, to which Ticketmaster turned around and slapped on ludicrous fees, which people were livid about because the fees were just like unrealistic. And The Cure singer Robert Smith basically kicked off and said, I'm not fucking having this. And everyone got a partial refund. So, yeah, feels good.
The revolution is beginning, and it's led by Robert Smith.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see a band like kind of stand up to that in particular.
Especially a band like that. Like a band as big as The Cure don't need to care. Like, they can sell tickets probably for whatever price they bloody want. So it is nice to know that an artist of that size is sort of still got their feet on the ground and cares about the fans.
I like to think as well, like, you look at gigs that we've gone to and ticket pricing, I think we're quite fortunate in a lot of the genres we listen to of like metal, pop punk, alternative music. You don't get many bands that charge a ridiculous amount for ticket prices. Like, I think the most I can think of off the top of my head paying for a ticket roughly has been like 40 to 45 quid for Slipknot. And I think that was with like Korn supporting as well. You're looking at production costs in an arena as well. I'm still kind of surprised it was that low. And then you hear about like pop artists and R&B artists and rap artists where it's extortionate amounts in big arenas for even just a seated ticket. And I think we are quite fortunate, quite lucky, like I say, with these kind of genres of the music we listen to and the bands that we love, that we don't have to pay those ridiculous costs.
I think there's a good connection in the scene, like the gap between the artist and the fans as consumers isn't as big as it is in maybe other genres. So I think we kind of benefit from that in a way. There's a mutual respect of bands don't want to rip off their fans kind of thing.
Yeah, and speaking of, when you just said the revolution is starting, last episode we talked about how a lot of bands are starting to push back and be a bit more vocal about merch cuts, and we've since seen bands start to actually take action. Don Broco have announced the Broco Arms pub sort of run, where before all 4 shows of their tour, it was this month, isn't it? Yeah, their March tour.
It's happening right now.
They will be basically doing pop-up merch at pubs, somewhat near to the venues. Some of them aren't that close to the venues.
I think some of them are exclusive merch items as well.
Yeah, exclusive merch items, and the same has been happening with Trash Boat after their shows. They've been selling exclusive merch at local pubs and bars, which is great because it feeds back into local communities by having independent pubs and bars be a part of this thing, and also it just means that bands can sell merch, get everything back that they put into it. Fans can buy merch at an affordable price. You throw in the fact that you can sort of hang out with the band, and yeah, I really hope that this is sort of something that becomes the norm moving forward, because things like pop-up shops or quick impromptu meet and greets merch places, I think it's the best way forward, because when venues inevitably will start sort of suffering because people won't be buying the merch, that they'll have to either reduce the rate significantly or drop it altogether.
Well, it's almost like striking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because even like people we went to the gig with at Beartooth were kind of saying, since they found out that like O2 Academy they'll take cuts of it, they're like, I'd rather order it online than buy it at the gig and give it all to the venue, because why should they be taking any cut of it? And I think we're taught, from a while, especially kind of in metal, and I think people are quite vocal, that streams don't pay. And that it's always kind of been that thing, I think, for the last maybe 10, 15 years in particular, at least for our generation in particular maybe, that buy merch, that's one of the best ways to support your favourite artists. And now that I think that war is being broken down even more, where they're like, actually, look at these fees, it's trying to find the best way to support those bands that you love. And you can see people like trying to find out, okay, and even just, to be fair, even point blank asking musicians that I've seen on Twitter, just saying, how can we support you best? Fans are trying to break through that kind of, I guess, wall that you've got there and thinking, okay, they're going to divide that between them more, and the venues are getting a cut of nothing, whereas they're getting all the bar spend that are coming to a venue. The bands deserve more of the cut. They deserve the money. They're the people drawing people to the arena and to the venue. It's quite a shit thing that these venues are doing, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I said this when we spoke about this on our previous podcast episode, but like, the band doesn't get a cut from the bar, so why should the venue get a cut from
absolutely.
the merch?
Yeah, it's just nice to see that collectively, like, the scene is all sort of banding together to try and now create solutions as well as just, raising the issue. And if you're not really aware of the merch cut discussion, or you want more information on it, there is a video on our channel about what merch cuts are and why they should end. And it'll be linked in the description of this episode on YouTube. So check that out. And that is the news.
Should we look at some recommendations we had last time?
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Every episode on our podcast, we end with recommending an album, and then at the start of the next episode, we talk about that album. Last month, James was not here. We had our lovely friend Josh fill in, and he recommended Hail the Sun's album, New Age Filth. Our first step into Swancore, I suppose.
Step into Swancore.
Yeah, brilliant. What did we think? I'm sure Josh was on the edge of his seat to find out what we thought.
Well, I really, really enjoyed this, but I'm finding it hard to review it because there's just so much going on.
Yeah. It's sort of hard for me to pinpoint what it was that I enjoyed, because it's just...
Well, I think that's something that I enjoyed about it, though, was how it just would just start off in different directions. The vocals I thought were really great.
Yeah, the vocals were the thing that really carried this whole album for me, because it was like probably the most consistent thing. Everything else, like the instrumentals, were so random and wild that the vocals were sort of the thing that was the through line, but in a good way. Like, once you sort of understood, like, oh, this is just going to be random and insane, it was like just along for the ride, and I really enjoyed this album.
I found like just the instrumentals though as well. The bass tones I thought were beautiful, and just some of the drum grooves really, really stood out and kind of actually had me really intently listening. And I think the mix with that complemented it well. But like you say, the vocals I think really stand out as something very strong in this in particular. And just a pretty all around solid record, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just referring to the track list. When I first gave this album its very first listen, I was on the bus, and there was one point during Parasitic Cleanse where I out loud went, ooh, on a public bus when people turned around and looked at me.
That's always positive.
Yeah, I really like this album. I think it was a really good blend of like technical, intricate music and then just like shake your ass and dance, like fun. So thanks, Josh, for your recommendation. We very much enjoyed it.
Thank you. So what did you guys recommend?
For When You Weren't Here, I recommended Don Broker's album Technology because I was really intrigued to hear what you thought of it. So I wanted to carry that over to this episode as well and hear your thoughts.
Initial thought was ridiculously long. It was like 16 tracks, an hour in length, and like no album really should be that long. Like, I think I've gone on record before of like a good 10 songs is like a really good amount, because I feel like anytime you're kind of getting past that, it's going to drag, and my interest is just waning at that point.
So that implies that you enjoyed the first 10 songs, right?
Not necessarily. I can't get into it fully, but I can pull away things that I can appreciate. Like, there was a lot of diversity within the songs, and so it wasn't stale at that point, kind of going through it. Like, you kind of get callbacks where some songs would sound familiar, and I think because of the length of the album that doesn't help, but you can also get not necessarily different genres, but very much different like styles, and a bit of the tonalities different between songs. So it's not like, to put metalcore into example, a lot of times you'll kind of get the same intro sometimes coming through from song to song to song, especially on an album. But this, it was very diverse. They'd start it in different ways. The structure would be different. Even the tonality in the vocals would be different. Riffs would change in a different way. You'd start with the drum intros. They would mix it up so it wasn't a stale kind of plodding along throughout the album. So I did think that was quite a nice kind of factor into it. But I just feel like there wasn't anything that just pulled me out as like, yeah, you're going to love this. This is fantastic. Musicality was great. Like there was some fantastic riffs in there, stuff that I recognised from seeing live in particular. Like I think it was at Slam Dunk. So I'm like, yeah, okay, there's some good stuff in here, but it's just not for me, I don't think. So I appreciate the effort with it. And it was like I think you're like trying to like fish out and be like, yeah, we're going to rave minute get there. And I can appreciate it, but it's not something that I would like repeatedly spin or go back to necessarily. So that's kind of a decent review from me, I think.
That was quite positive.
That was
I thought,
far
really.
more positive than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot too much, but, for us as Don Broco fans, that when you look at the track listing of this album, there are more bangers than you even fucking realise. Were there any songs that particularly that you liked? You can remember?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember names, but it was interesting going through it and being like, yep, I remember seeing them play that live, and I remember seeing them play that live. And I know it would have been, because this is a fairly recent album, if I'm right. So
2019?
So it would have been fairly recent from when we saw them at Slam Dunk.
Yeah.
From that point. So it was kind of that album cycle. So I can imagine a lot of those songs were played live recently anyway, as bands play more recent songs just as a casual norm thing. But it was a lot that I would recognise and be like, yep, I kind of remember that melody, or I remember that lyric line, or things like that. So there were points that stood out and I was like, yep, cool, I've got that. I remember that. And hearing melodies again, you can kind of hum the melodies along as it's happening, but I couldn't say there was anything in particular for a song that comes to mind where I was like, yeah, that one in particular.
The one thing that I think they do well, like as a fan, is they make album cycles feel like exciting and unique. Like I remember when this album cycle was coming round, just the sheer amount of singles, and it didn't feel like too much, because I think that's why it's probably a bit difficult for you because of the length. Whereas the length of this, usually I'm the same normally. Long albums really annoy me. But because there were so many singles and recognisable songs on this album, that by the time it came around, it had as many deep cuts as like a normal album that only has like 2 or 3 singles. If that makes sense.
I guess you're hearing a higher proportion of single to deep cuts.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So like you're going to be more familiar with it. Therefore, going into a longer album, the ratio is the same. So it's not too bad. If you're going to follow the band at that point and hear all these singles being released, you're going to approach it in the same way you approach a normal album.
It's a weird album because it's full of bangers, but yeah, for a new fan, also very long. So
hour is too long. I'm kind of worried, to be honest. I think it was like the upcoming Sleep Token album is meant to be around about that time, and I'm kind of a bit apprehensive in terms of how I'm going to react to that, because
but then they've
don't
done
want to drag.
Like Alex said, Don Broco released like a whole bunch of those songs on that album as singles beforehand. Sleep Token have done a similar thing.
5 so far.
There's maybe a third of the album out already,
but it's in chunks, isn't it? Because it's just the first 5 songs, which sort of not annoys me, but it's a bit just like.
So part of me want to approach that and jump to like song 6 and go to something that I've not heard before yet.
Yeah. But we'll see.
What was it you recommended then?
I recommended Def Havana's The Present is a Foreign Land. I know that me and you are planning on going to see them in Oxford at the time of recording next week.
Sure.
And so I thought I'd throw it out there as a recommendation, A, for us to sort of get a grip on the new stuff, but also to see if James would like it enough to come along. The look on his face says not. So
I'm not coming along.
That's fair enough.
Again, it's not really a negative review for me. I think the only word I can really use to describe it is good. Like, it was consistent throughout. Again, this one felt a bit more of a plateau to me. It felt more consistent across compared to the Don Broco, and it felt like a lot of the songs are a bit similar, but they were quite solid songs. There's not much I think I could critique and just like find out points why maybe like, oh, I didn't enjoy it because of this reason, or didn't enjoy it because of this reason. Everything was written well. But again, it's not something like that speaks to me.
Fair to say that that's not really your genre as well.
No.
So
it was worth a punt.
Yeah, sometimes with our recommendations with you, James, we have to take a bit of a punt and see what happens.
You do. And like, I'd say it's more of a miss than a hit for the most part.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do recall, I think it was you recommended like Kenny Hoopla, and that was a very massive hit straight away. And it is like that, but Yeah, it was solid. It was good, but it's not anything that I'm going to be like, yeah, I love this.
Well, as a long-term Death Havana fan, obviously I'd already heard this album, but when I first listened to it, I was a bit like, no, it's all right. It's nothing on the stuff they've released before, and it's still definitely not my favourite album of theirs. But the more that I've listened to it, the more that I've loved it. The more that I've kind of appreciated it for what it is, which is still lyrically the same kind of miserable themes that they've always had, but with much poppier choruses, much bigger hooks, and I've kind of learnt to appreciate it for what it is, which is a miserable pop album.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of summing it up. For me, this was my first Death Havana album I've ever listened to, so I didn't really have any sort of idea about what they would sound like. I'd heard like maybe 2 songs before this, so I didn't really know what I was expecting. But I really liked it. I thought it sounded like at times really massive and like almost anthemic, some of those songs. Like I could picture like a massive like arena singing along to some of it. And I think also as I've sort of digged more into what the album's about and read and listened to some interviews around it, I think you sort of understand that through the album, that it's sort of a whole album about like regret and lost time and trying to make up for it and like dealing with that, sort of like trying to live in the past, trying not to live in the past, but trying not to be too focused on do you know what I mean? I think that I'm trying to find that whole balance of like the present, the future and the past, especially given like the pandemic, sort of quite an easy thing to relate to because everyone sort of feels that lost time.
Yeah, and the fact that this was their first album as a 2-piece, pretty much.
Yeah.
I know Tom, their former drummer, still performed drums on this record, but not officially as part of the band.
Yeah.
So obviously that's something that impacts the themes across this album as well, is them trying to cope with being a 2-piece, essentially.
Yeah. But yeah, I really liked it. I felt like lyrically as well, the album flowed. I felt like it had a really good flow, and the way that it was structured and put together felt, for me, quite easy to listen to. So I'm not a big album person. I think I've said this before, like I'm a playlister by nature. But lately, like a lot of albums I've been enjoying, I've been listening to them. When I put them on, I don't turn it off until it's done, and this is one of them. So
The tides are changing.
Tides are changing, yeah. It was the same like the Dayseeker album. It was like I've not listened to any of their other music, but that one album, when I put it on in full. So
When he puts it on, he puts it on.
I put it on.
Do you put it on?
Yes, I put it on.
Where are you putting it?
On.
Shall we review some new songs?
No.
No, because I've got another suggestion. That Don Broco one was a backdated one, especially for you, James. But I'd been recommended Thornhill, so I wanted to open that up to all of us so we could all hear their latest album, Heroin. I was recommended it on the basis of they sound similar to Sleep Token, but I didn't really get that vibe from this.
No.
There's definitely some strong Deftones influence on this for sure, which obviously means I hated it. No, that's an in-joke. But yeah, I wasn't too keen on the vocals, but I think that's just a personal thing.
Yeah, I mean, people have that same critique of Sleep Token.
Yeah,
that's
true.
for a lot of people the thing that turned them off. So.
But I did very much like a lot of the instrumentation. The guitar tones are great. The bass being high up in the mix, I'm always a big fan of. So I didn't love it, but yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
I think I just pretty much echo all of that. Some great riffs were kind of scattered throughout, but again, just didn't really seem to attract me as a really good listen, and I just kind of struggled with it quite a bit. It seemed like kind of plodding through it, but they were kind of like those parts where you appreciate it. So kind of conflicted when listening to it and kind of thinking back on it.
Yeah, I wanted to like it more than I did, I think. Same sort of thing. As I was listening, I was like, it's so close to being...
Yeah.
I hate it when you have albums like
it's
that.
so
in
close to
particular.
being my thing, but it just wasn't quite there. It was like, there are things here that remind me of, it's what I like about Sleep Token is here, what I like about Loathe is here, but never quite goes all the way into being... for me,
There's something else that was kind of off-putting to me. Again, it's just a personal preference thing. It reminded me a lot of Muse.
And what do we hate?
We hate Muse. But I'm glad we gave it a try because they're a name that I've been hearing a lot about.
And I mean, they've got other albums as well, and
Yeah.
other music, so might be worth giving them a try.
Yeah, definitely. Should we talk about some new music now, though?
Oh yes,
Let's go.
It's my
Yes.
favourite kind of music.
So Veil of Maya have finally released album details and a new single. I Am a
Finally.
Happy Boy. May it's coming out, which is called Mother, and we've got Red Fur here. And like, I'm a fan already, so I loved it. The dissonance is great. The breakdowns are great. Lucas's vocals are great. A lovely mix of it. I kind of can't fault a lot of their music. They do have the similar kind of themes that carry from song to song, but I feel like they can mix it up in a good enough way that's still enjoyable, a really good listen, and I really need to fucking see this band live. I'm so desperate. There's like a couple on, like, you'll hear it for Fit For An Autopsy in a minute. There's these kind of newer bands that I found kind of pandemic era kind of, that I'm like, yeah, okay, something new, something exciting, and this is definitely one for sure. And so I love it, and I'm hyped as fuck for the new album. Where do you guys sit?
I thought this was really, really great. I really enjoyed this. The electronic elements, the guitar parts are really, really fun. And it felt like they kind of knew when to go a bit crazy and when to keep it a bit simple, which I think really balanced the song out really nicely.
Yeah, I'm always sort of surprised every time I listen to this band how catchy it is. So, because I think in my head it's just going to be super heavy, and then it's always like, oh shit, this has actually got a really good hook, and his cleans are always really good.
A lot of that kind of came, I think, with the change, because Lucas wasn't always the vocalist with them.
Right.
They used to be, from what I know, and I'm still more of like the newer era.
Yeah.
But they used to be more of a deathcore band. They
Just straight-
switched
yeah,
up,
straight
straight
up.
up deathcore.
Yeah.
Lucas came in, it started to transition towards more of a metalcore vibe, with obviously their distinct dissonance sound and those kind of ideas that come in from it. So again, the melodies that I think he brings through, and I think he's a very, very underrated vocalist.
Yeah. No, I think everything about this band's sort of underrated, because I think this song's huge. I really like sort of the way it sounds like the Pro Tools file just gets corrupted at the end, because it's just like it's like the computer just goes, do you know what? I ain't dealing with this anymore, which I just thought was really cool. Yeah, loved it.
One of the things I do love instrumentally that they do quite a lot is they'll stay in like a 4/4 meter, but they'll fuck around with the timings. And that's just like, it kind of like catches you out on like the offbeats and the syncopation slightly, and it's just like, the drummer in me loves that kind of thing. Yeah. Banging song.
Nice. Next up, we got a new one from Fit For An Autopsy called Hellions. This is part of the Aggression Sessions, which is a 3-way split with Fit For An Autopsy, Thy Art Is Murder, and The Boys in Malevolence. What do we think of this one?
There's two main things that stand out for me on this one. One is the vocals, particularly the gutturals. They just sound fucking awesome. And secondly is the drums, for just the constant, consistent blast beats, pretty much. The guitars complete the picture as well. They kind of hold everything else together in between. And yeah, I thought it was really great. And the Release Your Demons bit as well is just the perfect call to mosh.
Completely agree. Like, Joe Bad's vocals are insane. The unrelenting drums just kind of hit you in the face. And it feels like the last section as well with the vocals, it's like there's a lot of power in them, and it feels like they're right up in your face as he's kind of screaming it. It's just unrelenting. There's not as much of an instant catchiness, I think, as some of the songs on Oh What the Future Holds that like pulled me into their music and kind of made me a big fan. But I really love this still, and I think it grew on me as well with repeat listens. I enjoyed it even more. Again, a band I really, really want to see live. I love what they're doing. Absolutely incredible. And I know they're friends with Trivium, so I'm hoping that Trivium show that we might be going to, or are going to, like,
Don't even
in August,
say it.
if they have Fit For An Autopsy as main support, I will be happy.
Yeah, I like this song. I think deathcore inherently shouldn't be catchy, but their album Oh What the Future Holds was so catchy on the first listen that this one sort of caught me off guard because it wasn't, and I had to sort of remind myself, oh wait, this is deathcore. But like, yeah, no, I did like it. It grew on me massively, and I think the vocals are the standout thing. He just sounds so fucking angry, and which I like, because so many, I think it's more of a metalcore issue. So many vocalists sound like they're just doing a performance, whereas like when a vocalist actually sounds like they're fucking like angry and livid all the time, that's when I like it.
It's like there's a focus and they're really like nailing in on the point on the delivery.
It just makes everything feel a bit more real and a bit more like worth my time. Do you know what I mean? When a vocalist is just going through the motions, it's like, well, I don't give a shit. But with this, it was like, oh, I'm hyped because you're hyped. So yeah, I loved it. And I'm excited for the rest of the EP as well, because Maleva doing an Anastasia cover, which is going to be ridiculous. But yeah, it'll be fun. 3 originals, 3 covers. Bring it on, baby.
Next up, we've got Project Vengeance with Cut, Bleed, Repeat. Been waiting for this one for a little while.
Yes,
What
formerly...
is there to say about it?
Well, formerly the Big 6, now down to 5, so they can't be the Big 6 anymore. That was my reaction.
In that kind of regard with it, it's kind of like, this is what I expected, and just like at that level. You kind of say, Met,
Yeah.
it's like, I had an idea in my head thinking like, oh, this is what it's going to be. And it kind of was that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But then there wasn't anything that was like, oh, this is really, really cool, or like would like grab you and think like, oh, this is distinct and different. It's almost like you've now got like 5 friends who were all very, very talented vocalists going into studio, making a few songs, EP, however far it goes, and doing it for fun. It's a supergroup thing, and I think it's hard to it's hard to analyze it, I think, as a proper song, a proper group, because this isn't going to be something that's going to have longevity. Yeah. This isn't going to be something that's going to be extensive tours and multiple albums. You've kind of got to remember at the end of the day, it's something that's going to be a bit of fun and not to take it too seriously. And I think I kind of had it in my mind a little bit initially, being like, okay, let me critique the song a little bit more. But then kind of like taking that step back, I'm like, cool, it's good for what it is. There might be some cool one-off appearances they can do at some festivals or something like that, if it all lines up. But if not, yeah, just enjoy it for what it is, I guess.
I guess it's kind of a criticism that I had, was you can tell when it's Will.
Yeah, true.
Like, with no disrespect to the other vocalists, Will just blows them all out of the water on it. And it almost feels like you're just waiting for his next turn to come around.
And they had to put the pig squeals right at the end as well. Like, there was a little bit of predictability, I think, about it.
Yeah, but then, like you said, James, it's just a group of guys that are just having fun.
I think...
And we just take it for what it is, I guess.
Avenged are back after a very, 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 very long time, and released album details and this new song, Nobody. We grew up as massive Avenged fans, first of all.
Massive. To the point where I played the Nightmare album so much that you hated it.
I stopped being a
Avenged.
fan due to how unrelenting you were listening to their music.
So, just to give you a taste of how much I like Avenged Sevenfold, or used to like Avenged Sevenfold.
So then how did you find this?
It was alright. I think I probably... I mean, for... Peel back the fourth wall, quite a few of us in our friend group were all watching the YouTube live of the song debut. And I think I probably had maybe the most positive reaction to it out of everyone. I do think it's a grower, definitely. But even on my first listen, I think, probably enjoy it more than anyone else.
Alright, it's not a competition.
Sorry, but I liked it the most. No, I think I liked it. I think obviously the standout part of the whole song is the solo, as is with quite a lot of their recent
Avenged
stuff.
songs. It's a Synstigate solo.
I don't know. I liked it. I think it was one of those songs where you just sort of you get into the groove and you just sort of ride it through. I think a criticism could be that it doesn't really go anywhere, but not every song has to go to fifth gear. I don't think so. I quite liked it. There was something weird about M. Shadows' voice though that didn't sound how I recognise it. Do you know what I mean?
I read a comment somewhere where someone said it sounds like he's holding onto his nose.
What's he been doing for the rest of his career now? So I don't know. I liked it, and if anything, all this song has done is made me just remember how much I love the rest of their catalogue. So I've been on a massive Avenged Sevenfold kick lately. So good for them, because now they've earned a few more pennies from my streams.
Literal pennies.
Literal pennies.
Dan?
I liked the kind of noise that like comes and goes throughout it. I think that's...
What noise?
You heard. I think that's kind of a cool aesthetic. And I think watching it along with the video really helps, because the video is quite cool. It's got like...
Claymation.
Yeah, there's some cool vibes. And it like goes along in time with the music. Like when the characters are like walking and stuff, it's in like to the beat and everything. But it didn't really grip me that much. I'm not a huge Avenged fan anyway, so I didn't have any expectations, but it was just fine.
I would say mixed with the musicality of it. It felt like there was nothing really to the riffs, yet the orchestral edition was great. at times. That was kind of like a cool thing underneath it. Then I didn't like the drum sound. Then
It was a bit tinny, wasn't it?
yeah, then I was like, okay, the synths, that's interesting. They're experimenting. Then like I was like, okay, M Shadow's voice sounds a bit odd and different. It's like I was constantly going back and forth, finding things instrumentally I'd like in it and then not liking it, and it felt there was just no consistency. It felt like the song kind of dragged for a while, like you say, until the solo kind of happens, and it just was like I had so much anticipation and hope of, again, some of our friends being like, oh, cool, this is happening, like, let's get on there at the right time and let's all watch it, and kind of in real time reacting to it in the chat, and it was just they had a whole intro beforehand which was kind of chronicling the history and going into detail about all kinds of different things, which was like a nice nostalgia trip. And then it kind of came to the song and it was just like a massive disappointment for me, and I think I built up so much anticipation and expectation of what it could be. I'm all up for bands just experimenting and doing what they're doing, and I'm still going to be intrigued to listen to the album when it drops. However, it didn't hit the mark. It's not what I kind of wanted as an Avenged fan. They're still probably like the big bucket list band I want to see, and like so much chatter about, oh, download 2024 headliners, and that will get me a ticket straight away. I need to see them live. However, this didn't land for me. Didn't enjoy it, and I'm kind of sad about that.
Yeah. Thing is with that band as well, they never do the same thing twice. Every single album is different,
Well,
and I'm like all or nothing with every album as well. So
well, the other thing as well is, from what I've read about this upcoming album, is it's meant to be their most diverse and kind of
out there,
different album that they've done. So if you didn't like this one, no worries. Maybe the next one will be a bit more for you.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Next up, we've got Hut Mulligan with Shh golf song.
That's quite an aggressive shush.
that was actually really.
Sorry.
But the golf song,
Yeah, but the
James.
golf song.
What do we think?
I always feel like being a Hot Mulligan fan is like backing the underdog. Like you always want it to be great, and then sometimes even if it's not that brilliant, you're still like,
That was
that's
great.
alright.
Yeah.
That was fine. And that's kind of where I'm at with this one. Apart from maybe the chorus, which I think is really, really great, it doesn't really excel to me. It's a good song, and it's definitely a Hot Mulligan song,
Yeah.
but it's not out there. It doesn't strike me as first single from the new album.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I love that band a lot. They're one of those bands within that scene that make hating yourself very easy and very fun. Just by the way that they craft their songs and the way that their lyrics put together. Yeah, this one was cool. It was fun, but it wasn't like a mind-blowing Hot Mulligan song, especially by their standards. But, it's fun.
Something that I will say I did really like on this song was the bridge, and then that kind of very subtle key change towards the end. I thought that was really cleverly done.
Yeah, one thing I really like about this band is you see a lot of other bands in the same genre, the vocals will like soften up over time, whereas he's always got like that sort of half yell desperation to what he's doing.
Yeah,
and I feel like
it sort of meanders between being clean and kind of just yelling.
And I think that sense of like almost urgency and desperation it creates. If the instrumentals are like a 6 out of 10, he picks the song up to like an 8 or a 9. So yeah, overall, I do like this song a lot, but it's not like a Hot Mulligan classic.
I love the intro. I initially liked the vocals, but I feel like they stayed like a plateau throughout the song. To me, there wasn't enough variation. Then it started to make it become a bit stale for me. It didn't feel like he pulled back at any point or pushed more. It felt like it was kind of just on the same stream.
But then there's a key change, James.
It didn't really do enough for me with that. Like, my main takeaway was cowbell. That was the best thing. Love a good cowbell in the song, but yeah, it just felt very consistent and samey across the whole thing. There wasn't enough to be like, oh, okay, this is going to get me into them, because this is probably one of the first main listens I've had of them. I've heard you two speak of it for a while, but yeah, you're either going to think
maybe
about
this will affect my recommendation.
the recommendations might change. And I was like, there's parts of it where I'm like, I could enjoy this, or I could other music by them I possibly could enjoy, but this didn't stand out as anything like first time hearing like a Neck Deep song in particular, because I think I heard Losing Teeth and I was like, oh, this is great. Or like any band particularly, you kind of hear a first main song after hearing about them a bit and you're like, oh, okay, this is cool, this is my kind of vibe. this didn't land for me in that kind of regard. So a bit disappointing. I can see Alex's wheels now turning.
It's just weird because there are so many bands that like on paper I think you should like and you don't. And then there are so many bands that you do like that I wouldn't have predicted that you would.
Like
I'm surprised you got into Holden Absence as much as you did.
Fair.
And I think bands like Hot Mulligan, because they have that sort of grit in the voice.
Should be. On paper, like I agree with you. And on paper, it should be my kind of thing.
I mean, we'll get to it now. Trophy Eyes are a band that I think, at least their early stuff, I think you would really like.
Okay, well, let's transition. This, to me, was much more positive. It felt energized. It was up-tempo. It was kind of fun, enjoyable. The vocals I really, really did enjoy. And the tonality of the instruments, I think, were fantastic.
Can I just say, for listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we're talking about Trophy Eyes' new song, Blue Eyed Boy.
It was just, it felt much more fun, much more enjoyable, a better structure to the song. And yeah, just a more positive experience. And again, this is another one you two were speaking about a little bit when we're heading towards Beartooth. I kind of heard you picking up on it and hadn't had a chance to listen to it at that point. And then just kind of sitting back afterwards, I was like, okay, yeah, I can kind of vibe to this. Again, this wasn't an instant, again, with some bands where it's like, oh yeah, this has got me. But I was kind of like, yeah, I can see why this is decent and you guys like it. Wasn't a complete sell for me, but like I say, a much more positive experience.
I've always enjoyed everything that Trophy Eyes have put out, but they've never quite hit the same peak with me as they did on Chemical Miracle.
Yeah.
But this feels like it's kind of harking back to
even before. It feels like
almost even before that with the vocal style, how it's just starting to break into those screams almost like. So yeah, I really, really love this, and it feels like they're back to kind of, not that they weren't doing well, but they're back to kind of their peak, I think.
Yeah, this was an amazing song, I think. Same for me. Everything Trophy Eyes have ever done, I've really, really loved, and like I've enjoyed the fact that it's got variety. Like I loved the first EP, loved Chemical Miracle, and I really enjoy what they did with American Dream. Felt like it was just like, hey, let's just write a bunch of fucking anthems, and they did. And yeah, this one's really cool. It's just like has the sort of energetic, upbeat instrumentation that you sort of know from American Dream and Chemical Miracle, and yeah, the vocal style sort of it's like teetering on the edge of what the early stuff was, which I hate saying because it's such a cliche thing to be like, oh, they should sound like how they used to sound. Because whatever Trophy Eyes do, I've enjoyed, so they can sound however they want. But it's just cool to be able to hear like that, yeah, like teetering on the edge of that scream again. And I think the chorus is an absolute earworm. So loved it, and I'm sure they'll be playing it at Slam Dunk. So can't wait.
Just a question that's popped into my mind with that. Out of all these songs this month, did you have a particular favourite?
Trophy Eyes, I think.
Yeah, Trophy Eyes for me as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Velamaya for you?
Velamaya.
There we go. Easy. We know each other too well.
Upcoming releases?
Yes, what's coming
Let's
up,
find out what
James?
you're most excited for. There are 4 main ones that I've picked out for it. We've got Atreyu releasing The Hope of a Spark on April 14th. Jesus Piece releasing So Unknown on the same date. And also on the same date, Metallica with 72 Seasons. We have Enter Shikari, A Kiss for the Whole World on April 21st. I don't need to ask you, it's going to be Enter Shikari.
Yeah, it's Enter Shikari for me.
I'm intrigued by you because I think you were a fairly decent Atreyu fan back in the day.
Big time Atreyu fan back in the day.
You're a big Jesus Piece fan. And you are a Metallica fan.
Yes.
For me, I'm kind of neutral across it. I think I'm actually more intrigued by Jesus Piece, kind of more recently getting into hardcore. But I don't actually know what I think you're most excited for out of those.
Well, also, I mean, we're recording on the 22nd, so it will be coming out very soon. But at the end of this month, there is new Bury Tomorrow and new
Nothing
Nowhere. So there's a lot coming up. I'm going to be very busy listening to a lot of albums. This is a real tough one, you know. I'd say Atreyu is probably low down just because their unclean vocalist left a couple years back, and I've not been too hot on what they've done since. But they were like a golden era of like 2000s metalcore. Like their Congregation of the Damned album, and what was the other one? think it was called The Curse, maybe. Classics. But I'm not I'll give the album a go, but I'm not super excited. Jesus Piece makes me go feral listening to that band. Like, there are very few bands that I think I would just lose my mind seeing live, but they are one of them. And also, like, with all the singles they've released, like, everything's stepped up with that band. The production's much better. The range in what he's doing vocally in terms of, like, different types of screams, different pitches of screams. The whole thing is just so much better. Like, their only self-album was great, but I feel like this is going to be a huge, huge step for them. I think Metallica, weirdly enough, just because this is the first time I've been a fan as an album's coming out. So, like, their most recent album before this was Hardwired, which I think was 2016, and that's when I was sort of like really starting to get, like, after that album came out was when I really started getting into Metallica a lot. Like, I knew all the hits before that, but I wouldn't have called myself like a fan. Whereas this is the first album cycle where I've been like a fan. So I think just for that, maybe it's that. But also very excited for Shikari. Bury Tomorrow's going to be sick as well. Nothing Nowhere. This could be
we need to
one of the most exciting albums.
We need to talk a bit more about that Nothing Nowhere album, because I think, James, you've not been paying too much attention to it, I don't think, in the build up to it. But
I think there was one single in particular that I did like that had come out, which I was quite intrigued by.
But, like, when me and Alex went to see him live at the end of last year, we came away, one of the first things we both said to each other was, James would have liked that.
Yeah.
And looking at the features and what I've heard from the previews from this upcoming album, I think all three of us are going to really like this album, and it could be a dark horse as an album of the year contender, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well.
We'll have to see what we think on next month's podcast.
I'm just going to say then, if we are including the end of the month ones, I then will replace my Jesus Piece selection with Bury Tomorrow.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm ridiculously hyped for that.
What a blessed position to be in. There's so much that we're excited for. Like,
and there's like albums that of bands that I'm kind of hearing about and seeing through Twitter that I need to get into that I know have come out. Like, I've heard about the new Invent Animate one, and I've heard some of the singles, and I've had them kind of on my watch list for a while. I need to get into them, and I'm just seeing all these bands that are releasing a lot through March. That I think there's some that I missed that I need to go back to and find. So it's a great time for, like, heavy music at the minute in particular.
Absolutely.
Should we talk about gigs we went to? Well, the gig we went to.
Well, yeah, speaking of great times for heavy music,
Beartooth.
Let's talk about Beartooth at Wembley, eh?
Yes, let's do that right now.
We went.
So we went to see Beartooth at the Wembley Wembley Arena.
Don't like that. Never get used to it.
It's still always been the SSE for me.
Yeah, definitely. It was meant to be at Brixton Academy, but it got essentially promoted.
Yeah, due to all, like, the issues that Brixton have been having, everything seems to be moving across to OVO, which can't complain about.
I'm quite pleased it got promoted, because
I'm thrilled,
look at the show that we got.
It was incredible.
The show, that type of show wouldn't have happened at Brixton. Like, I think production-wise.
I mean, if we're going to talk production-wise, we'll kind of go. We'll end up starting with Beartooth.
Yeah, I'm
so I
getting
reckon
ahead
we
of
start
myself.
from start from the beginning. We saw Stray for the second time in, like, the past 6 months. After, like, seeing that headline show, which was ridiculously intense and phenomenal, it was quite cool to see in an arena setting and, like, kind of be able to introduce some of our friends to Stray live after we saw the amount of energy they had and how fantastic they were. I've loved Beartooth for a long, long time. However, Stray were the one that I was most excited for.
Yeah.
And I think, like, a lot of people, like, in our group were, after, like, not seeing them before, and I think they just absolutely killed it.
They were great. I think the main thing I took away from it was how good they sounded in such a huge setting. They're a band that we've only seen so far really at festivals and smaller venues, so seeing them on that stage was something new to us and new to them as well.
I think even, like, with production, their lighting showed that they have the capability. I know they've had a longer career, and it feels like they're coming into their own more at the moment in particular, and they're getting more notoriety with it. But it felt like they can fill these places. They put on the tunes for it. They've got a good production level. It's just like there was a turnover, I think, with Architects again. Similar, like, they've had a long career. There was a point where it was like, okay, they're now like an arena band. They're a big band. It feels like, I know they've been around again, but Stray if they can find the right timings and the right luck, everything kind of comes together as one. They could start to make that switch, and I feel like that is possible.
I wouldn't be surprised if they made a lot of new fans from this tour, and that night as well.
Yeah, I think it was summed up pretty well by a tweet that I saw, and it was like, I've seen a lot of opening bands at arena shows get swallowed up by the room. Stray made the room their own.
Yep.
And like, you can't understate how important that is for like an opening band in an arena to go over that well and not get just lost in like, because when it's that big and people aren't interested, you can hear people chatting, people are milling about, half the room's empty because people are at the bar.
It filled in there pretty quickly as well.
Stray was filled and busy and lively. Like the pit was huge. They were amazing. They couldn't have put on a better show if they tried, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, we queued up early, especially to see them.
Yeah.
And there was already quite a lot of people queuing, presumably with the same intention.
Yeah, I think if we'd been like 10 minutes later to the queue, we probably would have missed the start of the set, I think. So they were amazing. Then we took a step back, watched Motionless in White from further afar. What do we think? We were all sort of just wanted to see how it went, really, didn't we?
Yeah, I had a bit of a similar reaction to when we saw Black Veil Brides at Download, in the sense of I kind of assumed they were a bit of like a scene band and that I wouldn't be that into them, but I came away with at least 3 of the songs that I recognised.
Yeah.
And I thought they put on a really, really good show.
Agreed. Very much surprised me. I'd always heard, I think, that they put on a good live performance, but they've never been a band that I particularly got into and listened to extensively. But again, I was surprised. I seem to know a few of the songs, and I don't really know where I've heard them before, really. So that was quite intriguing. But again, I was more impressed with them than I had expectations going into it. I did feel like vocally the screams were better than the cleans. The cleans didn't really seem to land for me, but again, vocalists have different nights. That might just be my appeal to it.
Tour as well.
There's all kinds of different reasons why. It might just be personal preference with things. But I did really love the screams. They did stand out to me in particular. Again, they put on quite a good production level for an arena kind of thing. It felt like each of these bands fit the venue.
They did feel like they could have been a headliner.
Yeah, very much so. And you could see the people getting into it. Like even like the first song, like
the sing-alongs were very loud.
Sing-alongs are loud, but even like with the riffs being quite good and filling the arena, one of our friends, Tyler, doesn't even really listen to them, but he heard the riffs and he was like, right, I'm going in the pit. And he went straight off. So it's like, there is the attraction for that. I think they made new fans, or at least for people like us that never really listened to them, we're a bit more like, okay, it's not all we thought it was. Maybe not judge it in the same way that we have done previously. And it kind of makes you think about how you approach music sometimes, especially when you hear them being seen bands. So, very interesting. But then Beartooth came on. And
just blew everything out of the water, didn't they?
Well, it was just phenomenal. I think we've spoken about it before when we've seen Beartooth so many times. This was my ninth time seeing them, I think.
Jesus.
And every single time, I think there's a bit of an expectation being like, oh, I've seen them before. I know what to expect. It's going to be a good show. But it still feels like every time we come away from it and it's just like, yeah, that was fucking incredible. And it was just better than you think it was going to be. The new song sounded incredible live. Like, we got a taste for it at the Heavy Music Awards last year, but then didn't hear stuff like Dominate. I thought was incredible. Kaylee with a fucking flamethrower.
Crazy. I can't remember if I mentioned it to you guys, but I speculated while we were there, like, I reckon they made a loss, or at least, like, maybe just about broke even on that gig.
Yeah.
Because the amount that they put into the production, into the performance, for what, a 30 quid ticket, it wasn't a full arena.
But I think as well,
it's a good example where they've prioritised the spectacle and the performance over
and the experience,
over profit, I guess.
And I think
across the whole tour, they've probably made enough profit to justify it, I guess. Yeah. But that was an event not just for us as fans, but for the band. That was their biggest ever live show. So they obviously wanted to give it their all. And
with that comment, I think in particular, you've seen videos on social media since of Caleb being like, we're playing Wembley, and kind of like the highlights of it all. Like, I get to use a flamethrower today. It was a one-off thing. They've not done that kind of thing before. You've kind of seen shows, well, we've kind of seen shows before, and I've seen like them headline in Columbus where they have huge production. They're known for having big production now, and that's quite a good thing. It's like,
they do love their fire.
They do. Yeah. And you kind of think about that in terms of like breaking even. You see bands with high production levels like Bring Me the Horizon, especially now. And again, they can't be making a huge amount on some of their tours because of how extensive the costs are for some of the things they're putting on. And it does, I think, kind of show a little bit more of bands that want to really give fans not just a gig, not just a concert, not just to go and hear their favourite songs, but an experience and a show. And I think this in particular was one of those examples of a band that it's not about the profit necessarily coming off of it. It's about a gig that's been delayed for years. People have been wanting to see it. They've kept the same lineup through those years, and finally getting that chance for them to come and tour below over here. It was more of, okay, let's just have fun. Let's have a party. Let's everyone enjoy themselves. And I think it's the best time I've seen Beartooth. I came away from it, and it was just like, fuck yeah, incredible. And please come back over soon.
Yeah, I mean, you said this is a one-off. I can't see it being a one-off. It will happen again, I think. I think a lot of people have been talking about that show for a while, and it'll kind of catch on. I think they'll be headlining arenas again in the
without a doubt.
future.
I think also, and no discredit to the rest of the band because they were all amazing as well, but the work that Caleb's put in over the last few years to become what I would say is, after that night, the best frontman in alternative music now.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best, we can argue back and forth who's the best singer. As a frontman and someone who can lead a show and give... Do you know what I mean? The way that he was working the crowd with like the chants and the singing along and stuff, and the way that his energy all night was... Like, we all get fatigued at gigs. When you see him going berserk the entire time, it picks you back up again. And I think that, for me, it cemented him as the best frontman in alternative music now. And
you see him doing that night after night after night. You're seeing the videos and the tour. There's no let up. It's constant, and he is putting everything into every show. Like, there's even been like showing like a peek behind the scenes on like Instagram lives of him just kind of doing tour prep and like the fitness he's trying to stay at to provide people with that kind of energy and experience. And it's very much a testament to what he's been doing, how hard he's working. And it's fucking paying off.
Yeah, and you can see the improvement as well. If you look back at videos from his performances a few years ago, there's times where he was maybe slightly overweight, was getting out of breath while trying to sing the lyrics, and now he just is a machine.
Yeah.
To pose a question to you, to probably close it off a little bit. Bring Me the Horizon, Architects now being on the verge of... Well, Bring Me the Horizon definitely, and Architects being talked about on the verge of download headliners. Let's say... Architects are put in a good situation now with 11 albums down, and they're just, I think, their main support before Bring Me at download. This is like a bit of a test to see the new passing of the guard. Beartooth have only put 4 albums out, and they've got this production level. If we were to look a few years down the line, Beartooth as a download headliner?
It's certainly possible. I think the first step is either being sub-headliner for main stage or being headliner of second stage.
Similar to Architect's position now. That's what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah,
you look at the path where people are at.
The same as like teased Carter. Into it and kind of introduced to people, I think.
Because we've seen them there before at a big slot on second stage, I believe. We saw at the same arena when it was SSE, we saw Architects headline and Beartooth main support. Although it wasn't meant to be in that arena, we have just seen them headline that arena. They've had that step up there. You're seeing the growth in the band. We see the production growth. Again, only 4 albums in and the popularity they've got. Fit them at the right position, like how Architects are being fitted for this year. And we need this new guard of headliners anyway. Maybe not necessarily a few years. Maybe it's going to be more like 5 years, 6 years. A couple of albums at least, as they've only released 4. I think there is a very strong possibility they could headline and put on a phenomenal show.
Yeah, they certainly could be in the mix. I guess, like, playing devil's advocate a bit here, like, you compare it to Architects. Architects did a full UK arena tour with, like, maybe 4 or 5 dates. This Beartooth tour has been mostly academy venues and then just one arena tour in the biggest city, and it didn't sell out. So maybe they're still kind of some way off, but they've shown at least that it's something they are capable of, and people will be kind of paying closer attention to them now, I think.
I think also we're going to we're going to see, I think, a pretty huge shift in the next few years about the demographic that Download is going to draw, because I think this year is going to wake them up to the fact that
there's a market.
There's a market for younger bands and younger fans. I think, you know, people that grew up listening to Metallica and those sort of bands who are now in their 50s, 60s, they don't want to camp in a field for 5 days. We do. You give us 5 days worth of bands that we're going to enjoy, we'll do it. And we'll do it for the next 10 years. So I think bands like Beartooth, Architects, Bring Me Already There, Parkway Drive, I think Download, maybe the scale of Download will come down a bit to maybe meet those bands halfway, if that makes sense. Architects, yeah, they're close, but I don't think they're quite there. But if Download scales down just a fraction in the next few years, I could see Architects being there. Same with Beartooth, Parkway. So, yeah, it depends. But I think the way Download is going, I don't know, part of me thinks that this is sort of not like one last hurrah, but this is almost like we'll go all out for the 20th. And then we've sort of got a reason to scale it back for the year after.
We are
And
we
then
are
from
definitely
there,
going for the tangent, but I've seen like an interview with one of the guys that's involved in it, and someone posed the question of, "Oh, are you trying this as a 4-day event?" And he was like, "Oh no, this is a 4-day event and that's it." They're like, "We have enough stress doing a 3-day event. We are going back to 3 days next year." So anyone that's kind of thinking, "Oh, is this going to be how it's going to change?"
So it's definitely going to be just.
So yeah,
4
so it's
days for
definitely going
1
to
year.
be, yeah, from what he's been saying in the interview, it's definitely going to be back to a 3-day event from next year and going forwards. This is a one-off this year.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thought, isn't it? I guess also we're biased because
It's what we want.
people
yeah.
can make the argument for Ghost being a future headliner, and for us that's not appealing, but it's probably
But yeah,
realistic.
they're definitely
yeah.
in the conversation
So-
for sure.
It depends. I think it depends the way that Download goes after this year. But we'll see.
Right then, let's take a look at some comments. Our good friend Tyler commented on our previous podcast episode where we talked about some musical hot takes. He says Coldplay are class.
Disagree. Sorry, Tyler.
Personally, I think class is pushing it,
Yeah.
but they've got some good songs, and it's fashionable to dislike them.
It's fashionable to dislike them. I agree. They do have some good songs, but also they've got some songs that are so atrocious that it sort of invites a bit of the hate. So,
I reckon you love Paradise.
do you know what? I actually really like Viva La Vida. Like, unironically really like that song. Got a favourite Coldplay song, James?
No.
Name a Coldplay song, James.
Clocks.
Wow, I'm actually surprised. I didn't
That was
think
really good. Yeah, I was impressed with that.
Yep.
You both were impressed with me
Name a
knowing
second
Killer's song at Motion
Name a
Some
second
White.
one.
Viva La Vida.
Well, I just said that.
Yellow.
Okay, there we go.
Isn't there? Is it? No, okay, I don't
Go
know
on.
if it's.
No, go on.
Is there submarine? Something to do with submarine?
I don't know.
That's the Beatles,
That's
mate.
the Beatles.
No, it could be Coldplay as well.
Got him.
The Lions Music commented on a clip from the Enter Shikari vlog of the quickfire round. They said, that Pendulum remix is nuts. Saw them in Glasgow last week. Holy drop. So much better than the Reading version. And yeah, I agree. I don't know if you guys saw the video at all, but yeah, that remix is nuts.
You're seeing them again soon?
See them again in April.
I think the whole quick fire round. Sorry, I'm not answering that question at all. But related though, I think the concept of the quick fire round is brilliant.
It's
I
great.
think
isn't
so
it?
many more bands should do it. Just be like, hey, look, we can't play all our songs.
But here's 4 of them
Mashed up.
squashed together,
It's sort of
remixed.
I know that it's not our target, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Did you guys see the Taylor Swift set list?
44 songs?
Yes, but it's not, because she does similar things. That's the point. So she'll do like 3 songs in one, but people are counting them as like, oh, she did 44 songs.
Yeah.
But she only plays for like just over 2 hours. 2.5 hours, I think. So I'm just saying, Taylor Swift and then Shikari, both doing the same thing, boy.
Tour?
Could you imagine?
But yeah, I agree. It's a really, really cool remix, and maybe we'll get a studio recorded version at some point. Who knows? In our video where we forced James to listen to 100 Gex and react, we've had a comment saying, for a metalhead, he sure is focused on the visuals, to which I don't know what that's meant to mean. Does metal not have visuals? Or
Is that a
a
compliment?
metalhead's meant to have poor eyesight?
Yeah. Is it like, wow, for a metalhead, he's paying a lot of attention to the visuals?
That's the thing. Yeah, it could
Or
be
is it
interpreted
like-
either way.
Oh, for a metalhead, he's paying a lot of attention to
I
visuals.
feel like also when you're watching a music video, you're watching a music video, so like you're taking in what you're seeing. So
Sort of the whole point of a music video.
yeah,
Is to present visuals alongside the
And
music.
to react to said visuals is the point of a reaction video.
Yeah. So
confused.com.
we've come full circle.
Shreds Durst commented on the same video saying, 100 Gex is just a great band for when you want to listen to something fun. Yeah, fair play.
I mean,
They're not wrong.
again,
Depends on what you think is fun.
that it is personal preference, isn't it? So if that's what you think is fun, you do you.
We also released our Holding Absence live podcast video this month, and we've had lots of lovely comments that I won't read out because there's lots of lovely people being very lovely and very nice.
Lovely.
If you haven't watched it yet, go and check it out.
Yes, please do. We had a lot of fun and loved doing it. It was amazing. We'd love to do more of them in the future.
That's the comments.
Today's discussion, we are going to be doing a draft of our dream supergroup band. We get to pick a drummer, bassist, 2 guitarists, a vocalist, and then 1 bonus spot that could be anything. We did this all the way back in our 5th episode of the podcast. We've made a rule this time that anyone picked in that episode is off limits. So, for example, James, you picked Jane Weinberg as your drummer. That's off limits to everyone now. If you want to know every artist that's off limits, go listen to that episode. There you go.
It was a good episode. Go check it out.
Episode. And the same rules apply here. So if James picks a drummer first and I had them in mind, I can't pick them.
Oh, we're doing that as well.
Yeah,
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
like a proper
Oh,
draft.
no.
So if James goes first and picks this person, they're off limits for both of us. Like a proper
Shit.
draft, like a sports draft. So James, with the first pick in the Ragamuffins Dream Supergroup draft, who are you taking on drums?
So you said off camera already that you think I'm going to steal your pick.
Yeah, I think you might.
I've got 3 written down here, and I'm kind of like going between them all.
Are you trying to deliberately steal his pick?
Yeah, I'm kind of intrigued now.
James
and
is
see if I can
James
do
is
it.
prepped for like an NBA GM.
I've proper
he's got notes.
I've got notes.
He's got a
He's
pen
put,
and paper.
he's put them in formation as well.
I've
Brilliant.
got preference order. So having first pick is quite good. For drums, do I go recency bias? For drums, I'm going to go literally recency bias. Fuck it. Connor Dennis. We've just seen him with Beartooth and just absolutely fucking nailed it. And he's just going to be a force behind the kit.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good pick.
Dan.
I'm going straight into
Yeah,
straight
straight.
onto it. Okay, I'm going to go for formerly of Lower Than Atlantis, Eddie Thrower, because that guy's just like an octopus behind that kit. He's just brilliant. He does a lot of session work and like coaching and stuff now, and yeah, he's just an absolute machine. And he makes it look so easy. Like he's one of those drummers that, like, let's go with James' example, Connor Dennis. He's a great drummer, but like he's putting the effort in, and you can see that he's absolutely smashing the shit out of the kit. Eddie Thrower just glides across it. It's so elegant and effortless, and I think he's an awesome drummer.
Nice one.
I think I know where you're going to go now.
I'm thrilled that my pick didn't get taken. I'm going for number 2 of Sleep Token.
Yeah, I thought you were going to.
You talked about an octopus behind the kit. This guy's all over the fucking place. He's Splash, China, Tom Phil.
Double splash.
I don't know how he does it, but he's sensational, and I can't think of a better way to start my band than with number 2. My pick.
You're bassist.
All right, I'll go first for bass. This is a tough one. Mostly because I've not given it any thought.
You've got a moment to give it thought while me and James are having a giggle.
Yeah, have a giggle, carry on. All right, this one's a rogue one. Maybe it will pair up with 2 on the drums, maybe it won't. I'm going for John Deacon of Queen because he's the writer of some of the most iconic bass lines in history. And frankly, I've panicked a little bit.
Bum 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 bada bum bum.
Yeah, so Yeah, I'm probably going to come to regret that one. But I've done it anyway now.
I just remember, thinking about your last time we did this, and you had, the name's not coming to mind, but you had Michael Jackson's drummer.
Yeah, Jonathan Sugarfoot.
That's it. Because he always catches the cymbals behind. Yeah. I just remember me and Dan properly thinking through a good band or someone who people we like and we want to go and see in particular or something. And yours are just random musicians.
Thing is, mine are you guys last time as well. You both picked pretty coherent bands, and I picked a bunch of all stars that don't play together. So we'll see if I've done the same today. So yeah, John Deacon of Queen for bass, please.
So I very nearly picked 2 to play drums, but I didn't want to pick 2 people from the same band because I've put 3 as my bassist.
Oh, you motherfucking bastard.
Mainly for his stage presence, or their stage presence. Yeah, they always seem to just be floating around the stage, having a bit of a laugh, and a great musician as well.
Yep, love that.
You completely throw me off. I had one pick for bass and it was just him. So I'm literally having to pull this out from my brain.
Just think of a band you like and who plays bass in it. I guess it would be the easy way to do it.
That is the easy option. For bass, I'll take Alessandro Venturella.
Okay.
V-Man
Yeah.
is just going to be solid.
I mean, if you're going to settle for someone as a backup pick, the V-Man's up there.
My guy's going to hold the fort with Connor Dennis, and I feel like as a rhythm section, they would be they'd be a force to be reckoned with at that point. So yeah, that's a solid rhythm section. So I'm quite happy with that actually.
Nice.
For my first guitar spot, I'm going to take a little duo actually happening here now. I'm going to take Jim Root. His little noodling on some of the guitar work is incredible. He's proven that he can write some killer riffs, in the last few years in particular, kind of stepping into more of a writing role with Not as well in since the passing of Paul. And again, just a great stage presence, great beard.
So far you've got Slipknot with Connor Dennis on drums.
Yes, I'm happy with that. I'll take it.
My first guitar pick is my first pick for guitar is Simon Neil of Biffy Clyro.
Brilliant.
That man knows how to write a song, and he's an exceptional guitarist as well. He can chime in with the vocals a bit as well. Obviously, he's the lead vocals for Biffy as well. Very, very talented guitarist.
Nice one. My first guitarist. I need someone that can shred a solo, but the best solos are the ones that I think are singable and just not shredding for the sake of it. I want Mark Morton from Lamb of God. I think he's got the best solos in modern metal.
You're about to do your second guitar pick.
Oh yeah, fuck! I'm back to back.
So it's back to you. You could screw me over. He was in second place in my next lot for rhythm guitar.
Ooh. Yeah.
So don't screw me over, please.
Trying to think.
Who I'm going to pick.
So he's trying to screw you over.
Bear with me. I'm thinking. Do I want a really tight rhythm player or do I want another shredder? That's the question. It's a tough one. I'm doubling down on the shredders. I want Kirk Hammett. There we go.
You can have him.
That's my pick.
I think we're going down a similar route again. Me and James are picking well thought out bands, and you're just going what the greatest bands of all time.
Yep.
For my second guitarist, I am going for the one and only Debbie Goff of Harriet.
Do you know what? I was this close to picking Debbie as well.
Because, my God, can that girl shred?
Yeah.
And she's got a proper set of pipes in her as well.
Yeah.
Again, I've got 2 guitarists that can fucking shred and can contribute to vocals.
I should have. Do you know what? I was this close because I thought Debbie and Mark would be such a good fit together as well.
Well,
fuck.
We've got Debbie and Simon instead.
Kirk Hammett. What an idiot.
Regretting your decisions already. So, on guitar for me, kind of going in a similar vein as you with having some vocals behind it. I'm going to go with Matt Heafy. I feel depending on how I want to make my final decision with main vocalist, either way he can provide some either cleans or screams that are going to be top tier while he's doing some riffage. either way, I feel like I'm in a good spot right there. So that is where I'm standing. Oh, and I get to choose vocalist actually, don't I? So, Connor Dennis, V-Man, Jim Root, Matt Hafey. What kind of vibe of a band do I want to go for? This is what I'm thinking. Cause
Yeah, vocals really lead the way, don't they?
I'll tell you what could be an interesting vibe. I'm going to go with Drew from Stray.
Wow.
Tasty.
That's very tasty.
I feel like that could really provide some interesting dynamics between like him and Matt doing some vocals back and forth. Again, like with a really good rhythm section behind it. Some interesting solo work from Jim, like writing some good riffs as well. Yeah, that's going to be quite a fun band. I quite like that, actually. I'm happy.
I'm going for Courtney LaPlante, Spirit Box.
Motherfucker.
Just mainly because she's just one of the best around at the moment, but also because I think her and Debbie would work really well, sort of complementing each other's vocals. Simon can chime in from time to time again if he wants as well.
I'm livid at you right now.
But yeah, I just think she's one of the goats in the scene at the moment. Which doesn't make sense. You can't say the greatest of all time at the moment. But
Defeats the object, but still.
I'm saying it anyway. Courtney, you're in the band.
You're hired.
Great pick. I feel like I need a bit of youth now to revitalise John Deacon, Mark Morton and Kirk Hammett.
Someone's got to put them to bed.
This vocalist will not be putting them to bed.
Give them their warm milk.
He'll be scaring them to bed. I want Brian Garris.
Very nice.
I feel like I just need something, just a bit of aggression in the band, and he's the one.
I think Brian will get on with the vocalist, the bassist of Queen.
Yeah.
Picture them interacting, please,
the more
for a
I'm thinking
moment.
about it, the more John Deacon was really a knee-jerk reaction that was not paid off for me too well, but it's fine.
It's fine. You made that decision under pressure.
That's sensational. All right, now it's time for the bonus pick. This can be anything we want. For example, last time I picked Keith Flint of The Prodigy, basically just to
Fuck around.
Just to be Keith Flint. Dan, you chose a DJ.
I can't remember what I chose.
Jackie P? Is that right?
Oh, yeah, I might have done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
That's Scarlord's DJ.
There you go. And James, you chose Justin Bonnets as an additional vocalist. So it can be anything we want. I have gone for Joe Hahn of Linkin Park to do DJ's samples and scratches, please. That's what I want. Hybrid Theory is the best new metal album of all time, and he's a huge reason why. So, yeah, I want new metal in this band. I want that element in there.
New metal queen.
New metal
Your
queen.
band is the weirdest mix.
There must be some kind of AI where we can like throw in parts of this band and just
You know, on TikTok or like
know what it
Instagram,
sounds
where you
like.
see like people trying to match different songs of different genres, kind of. I'd love to see that kind of mix of like a Queen song with a bit of Knock Loose with it, and then some Joe Hahn scratching.
That would be insane. And yeah, and then Mark Morton and Kirk Hammett are doing like a dueling solo.
Bohemian Blepsody.
Brilliant. Do you know what? I very nearly went. Do you know what? I'll tell you at the end. Okay, so I don't think either of you are going to say it, actually. I nearly picked Hate 5-6 as my bonus to film it.
That's actually quite a good idea.
That's a good answer idea. You save that for next time.
Oh, fuck yeah, brilliant.
My bonus is very niche. So to clarify my band, I've got Eddie Thrower from Lone Atlantis on drums, 3 from Sleep Token on bass, Simon Neal from Biffy Clyro, and Debbie Goff from Harriet on guitar, Quantity Planet of Spirit Box on vocals, and my bonus member, you'll only know if you're at 2,000 trees, it's Tigger.
Jesus Christ.
Just to be bouncing around,
Yep.
throwing himself in the crowd, running around the stage. If you didn't see Tigger at 2,000 trees, you won't fully understand it, but the energy that man had throughout the entire weekend, on one of the hottest weekends of the year, in a thick, fluffy Tigger outfit, complete with helmet, was absolutely sensational, and I want that man in my band.
James, your bonus member.
I got 2 on my list. And I really thought at one point you were going to pick one of them, Alex. And I'm actually coming from the same vein of you for the one that I'm going to pick. I'm picking Mike Shinoda.
Ooh, I was this close as well. I was so close to picking my
The exact reasons
But
as you were
But I
leading up
didn't.
to it, and you were saying like, oh, like one of the best albums of all time and all of that. I was like, don't fucking pick it. Don't fucking pick it. But I feel like Mike's going to give me some great production behind the scenes. Multi-instrumentalist. Again, can add to the vocals with it. I think he's going to be the glue that holds my band together in terms of like, we're going to be a cohesive unit, a force to be reckoned with. We're headlining Download year one straight away. Fuck it. We're going for the top.
Why is it every time we do something like this, I end up with the most like unhinged? Do you remember we did the Dream Festivals and it was just fucking ridiculous? Why is my problem?
I say it's a reflection on you.
All right, let's recap our Dream Supergroup bands, and you lot can let us know in the comments or on social media who had the best one. James, your band.
On drums, I've got Connor Dennis. On bass, I've got V-Man. Guitars are with Jim Root and Matt Hafey. My vocals are Drew DiGiorio, and I've got Mike Shinoda holding the fort.
So I've got Eddie Thrower of London Atlantis, 3 from Sleep Token, Simon Neal, Debbie Goff from Harriet, Courtney LaPlante, and Tigger from 2000 Trees.
And Alex?
I've got 2 from Sleep Token, John Deacon of Queen, Mark Morton of Lamb of God, Kirk Hammett of Metallica. Who was my vocalist again?
Brian Garris.
Brian Garris of Knock Loose, and Joe Hahn of Linkin Park. Yeah. Not happy.
I picture these people on a stage. As soon as you said 2, I forgot he was your drummer as well. I was just picturing him in full gear.
I'm trying to just imagine like Brian with like his wet hair like in the fucking like at the barrier in the crowd's face, and then John Deacon's there just like with his
Just
bass up to his
vibing.
nipples, just fucking vibing.
I thought then I picture like Joe Hahn looking across and just seeing like 2 go like hitting some splash cymbals.
I'll tell you what, I would love to be in that green room.
Yeah. I'm not happy with that in the end, actually.
Can you pick better than Alex? Let us know your perfect band lineup in the comments. Or tweet it to us. Let us know on Instagram, whatever.
Suppose we should recommend some albums and wrap it up. James, what would you like to recommend to us today?
I'm going to recommend an album that I got into and listened to a while ago, and then leading up to Slam Dunk, wanted to kind of revisit, and that is Landmarks, Lost in the Waves. I don't know if either of you have heard it before. It's
Don't think so.
a good, very, very good, kind of a metalcore album, but I think they pull from a lot of other kind of genres. It's a lot more diverse than I think you would expect it to be. And revisiting it is kind of getting me quite excited to see them at Slam Dunk. So, yeah, check it out.
Dan, what would you like to recommend?
I'm going to recommend an album that I recommended last year, but then we didn't do the recommendations. So I'm going to bring it back. It's one of my favourite albums from last year as well. It's the self-titled album by Prince Daddy and the Hyena. Mainly because I think Alex is absolutely going to vibe with it and love it immediately. James might like it as well.
There's a lot of hope in
Who
that.
knows? No, there's quite a versatile album. There's bits of indie, there's some pop punk, there's some emo, there's all sorts in there. So there should be something for both of you. But I think mainly Alex is going to absolutely love it. So
Nice.
that's the main reason I've recommended it.
I'm going to recommend an album that I want to listen to myself, and mostly I just sort of want to see if James does end up vibing with it. It's Chemical Miracle by Trophy Eyes.
Fuck yeah.
I'm interested to see how it hits your ear.
Just one of them.
It's just one of them.
I'll have one headphone on.
Good recommendations.
Nice one. What we got going on the channel at the moment, boys?
Well, we're kind of gearing up towards Takedown Festival at the moment. Very, very excited about that. There's quite a few videos hyping it up that we've got. Get tickets. It's going to be a great day. There's going to be an after party, which we're probably going to be at as well.
And we're going to be vlogging it as
we're
well.
vlogging it. We're going to have interviews, all kinds of different things. So definitely go and see that. And it's just kind of all leading up towards festival season. I think at the moment we've got videos previewing Slam Dunk with more announcements with 2000 Trees and Download on the way. We'll keep you up to date with all of that. Just great times are happening right now, I think.
There's also going to be a vlog of the Beartooth show that we were talking about. It may even already be on the channel. So take a look for that.
We have a Spotify exclusive radio show called RAGAMUFFIN Radio, where we each play 5 of our favourite songs and just talk about them. So you can go check that out now as well. We also have a series called A Perfect Gig, where we interview members from bands, sometimes our friends, and we ask them to book their dream 4-band gig and have a nice chat along the way. So go check that out as well. James also told me that if you buy him a shot at the Takedown after party, he'll drink it. So
Facts. Yeah. Not
everyone-
Sambuca, please, though. I don't vote with Sambuca.
not Dan, because he's designated driver for the next morning, but James will do any shot that you buy for him, including Sambuca.
I won't enjoy it, but I'll do Sambuca.
Lad.
Chug.
I would prefer tequila. Let's just get that straight up there.
It's a shot.
Shot. And that's the end of the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I'm amazed you've made it this far.
I'm amazed we made it this far. Well done, us. Oh, John Deacon and Queen. Fuck.